I'm Relevant founder Cameron Strang, and this is the Relevant Podcast Impact Conversation Series. On this episode, we're mixing things up a bit. Hopefully you saw our first episode with Jimmy Darts. It was incredible. If you missed that conversation, definitely do yourself a favor and go get it. Today, we've got two great guests who are here to talk about making an impact, this time through business and ministry, and staying focused on your God-given purpose no matter what. Our first guest today is entrepreneur and speaker David Meltzer. He's built and led multi-million-dollar companies, worked alongside some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment, even working as the CEO for the agency that inspired the movie Jerry Maguire. Years after grinding, though, he reached the top of his field. And at the height of his success, he lost it all, going bankrupt and losing all his money and his career, even parts of his identity. That season forced David to completely redefine what success meant. He rebuilt his life and business from the ground up, this time anchored around faith and rounded out with gratitude and service. Now he's made it his mission to empower others to find purpose in their work and use their influence for good and make money too, of course. He has an amazing testimony about redemption, perspective, and what it really means to make an impact that lasts. And I'm excited for you to hear that conversation. It's coming up in just a few seconds. But before we get to that, I want to thank the presenting sponsor of this 6-part Impact Conversation Series, Christian humanitarian organization World Vision. I've had the chance to travel and see their relief, development, and advocacy work overseas, and I can tell you it is life-changing. With a presence in nearly 100 countries, World Vision helps equip families, children, and communities to lift themselves out of poverty. To learn how to be a part of what God's doing around the world, check out worldvision.org/relevant. And they're celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. So happy birthday, World Vision. Okay, without any further ado, here is Relevant Managing Editor Emily Brown's conversation with David Meltzer.
David, thank you so much for joining me today. You have such an incredible and successful story that I'm really excited to dive into. I'd like to start at the beginning. What did success look like for you early on in your career, and how has that definition changed over the years?
What a great question, because it's really, for me, that evolution that defines the success that I have today. Because success for me was how much money I made. It was really simple. If my bank account went up $100, I was successful. If it went down $100, I was unsuccessful. All the way up until I had over $100 million, I used to be depressed if my bank account went down, even though I knew I had plenty of money. But all I wanted to be, all I defined and identified with was how much money I made, how rich I was, or how much money I could make. It was a competition, negotiation. It was a form of scarcity that I try now to help other people identify for themselves so that they can live in abundance, which is now how success is defined. Still making a lot of money, but for the sake of helping a lot of people and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've seen that that's your motto, is make a lot of money, help a lot of people, have a lot of fun. How can people practically embed that mindset into their business model, whatever scale or field that they're in?
Well, it's really about defining behaviors and separating our behaviors into two different types of activity. One, non-negotiable, which becomes non-circumstantial, which ironically allows for us to have 90% of the success. So for me, putting an importance or a priority on my sleep, my health, my family, yes, my finance, my faith, the study of time to utilize it towards those ends, and the study of relativity or meaning, so that I don't cast a shadow on my self-image, this identity. I don't cast a shadow on my future, because it is the meaning we give our past that limits our future. And then it also frees me to prioritize correctly according to the circumstances, the uncertainty, God laughing at me every day. I now feel as if I have much more control by utilizing my behaviors in a non-negotiable and prioritizing in a negotiable way.
Right. I know that shift in that mindset came really after kind of losing everything, which you've spoken so much about. I'm curious, what did that experience teach you about the role of money and purpose in your life?
You know, I attach my emotions to an outcome. I will be happy when I will be happy when I make my first million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. And as I kept making millions and millions, I got less and less happy. But when I started to focus in on money is here for a purpose, it's to shop for the right things for the right reasons. So I will be happy for the sake of building a community center in Africa, giving scholarships to other kids who somebody gave me a scholarship to go to college. I'll be happy when I'm able to buy my mom a house. I will be happy for the sake of what? I'm going to volunteer my time. And so as I utilize these behaviors for the sake of what I think is important, not what's missing, not what I don't have, not what other people want from me, I find great fulfillment, purpose, because I now have the ability to enjoy the consistent every day, which is counterintuitive to human experience. People hate consistency, persistently without quitting in the pursuit, the process of my potential, not attaching to an outcome.
So for you, what has been the difference in your approach between building a business for purely financial reasons and building a business that can create a greater impact for others?
So I don't separate those two. When I open my LLC and every other corporation, I check one box: for profit. So I am here to make a lot of money with my business for the sake of many different things. And they all are impactful because that's who I am and that's the values I have. And so I know that in order for me to extend, amplify, and to utilize my capabilities to their fullest potential, I need to have a lot of money to do so. And that I can't give what I don't have. And if I want to have the most impact, it's not going to, which I do, volunteer on Mondays to feed the homeless down in Dana Point on the harbor. It's going to be able to give $10 billion to clear the ocean of plastic, or to, give 1,000 students scholarships to college that couldn't afford to go. That's going to have amazing impact, but that does not come free. And I am a realist about impact. It takes money to have great impact. And I want to empower over 1 billion people. So I need to make a lot of money to have that type of impact.
Earlier you mentioned your faith, and I'd love to know more about that. How do you feel like your faith has shaped the way you think about business and money and success and generosity?
Yeah. So faith to me is everything. I used to thought it was hard work and wisdom that would shorten the distance of resistance between me and my success. But it's not. It's an best option face of something bigger than me, and omniscient, all powerful, all knowing, who loves me, protects me, promotes me, and perfects me. So when there's no evidence, which happens all the time in life, or the evidence is contrary to where I want to be, yes, I seek wisdom of others that are sitting in a situation I want to be in. Yes, I ask them for directions. But most importantly, I know I'm protected, promoted, loved, and perfected. I just don't understand. That's why I can't see the evidence. That's why I don't understand the counterintuitive evidence. And I just know that every problem and every struggle in my life has the solution already in it. It's just a lapse of time before it turns into a resolution, a resolution. And so to speed up that time, yes, seek wisdom and help, but also have faith. Have faith you're protected and promoted. Don't accelerate in the wrong direction. Don't give your attention and intention to the separation, the worry, the anxiety, the need to be right, offended, guilty, anxious, frustrated. All of those things are just going to create a farther distance between you and the resolution, the resolution.
So in your own life, how have you been able to tell when you're going down a business direction that God is leading you to versus one that he's not really calling you to?
Yeah. So for me, there's some things I look at. One, I use my intelligence because I am in a linear experience called the human experience. So I use my intelligence to evaluate the intuition, the inspiration that a calling is formed by. And so for me, information is part of the human experience. It's inform. We are informed. Transformation is of the intuition and the inspiration. And so I see inspiration and intuition a little different. The callings that I get, I see a calling as not having a linear time frame to it. So for me, when God calls on me, which he does, I know he's saying, David, pay attention. Let me elevate your awareness and let time reveal. Let me provide a revelation with the calling without an expectation of time. And as an example, I always love to use my former passion of bad behavior called gambling. And I would play a game called craps, which is a dice game. And God would call on me when I was playing craps. He would say, David, hard 8, which means double 4s. And I would listen instantly, thinking God was giving me a time frame, not an awareness, not a revelation. Because God doesn't work on man-made constructive time. He doesn't understand 24 hours. He doesn't know December 25th. Promise you. He lives in a quantum, in the infinite of everything. So God calls on me and he says hard 8 for the sole purpose of teaching me a lesson, not for me to win in gambling. And so he's elevated my awareness to hard 8, but I misinterpret that. So I put $1,000 on the hard 8 and there's no hard 8. So then I decide, well, maybe I'll try it again. No hard 8. Well, now I give up, and 3 or 4 rolls later, hard 8. Because he was just elevating my awareness for me to learn that he doesn't utilize intuition and inspiration in a man-made construct of time, but he uses it to elevate your awareness to say, hey, here's a clue, look for the patterns and make better choices. And that's what he did with my dice game. He gave me a clue. I saw a pattern and now I make better choices.
I'm curious, and have you noticed a difference in the success of your career since you've really integrated faith into your business model and more into your life?
It makes everything easy because having faith elevates my awareness to the dis-easy. It elevates my awareness to the mental, physical, spiritual dis-ease in my life. And I start with the 5 things that God has given us a body that he tells us to do. You see, our lifetime, our human experience is bookend by 2 experiences. 1, your heart starts. 2, your heart stops. That's the human experience. Your eyes can stop working. Your ears can stop working. They could cut off your toes. You're still going to be in the human experience. You lose all your hair, turns gray, still going to be in the human experience. So I said to myself, God makes it pretty clear. You need to breathe to keep your heart beating or you're going to die. So I got help breathing. He says you need to sleep or you're going to die. So I got help sleeping. He said, you need to move or you're going to die. So I got help moving. He said, you're going to eat or you're going to die. So I got help for eating and drink. You need drinking. So I start with the basics. Then I move from the basics, those 5, to my family, to my friends, to my health, otherwise, to my finances so I can do more and be more impactful. All of these things, relativity, meaning, and time. And so for me, faith is everything, because if I didn't believe in God, then I wouldn't have the appropriate behaviors that are providing me an extraordinary exponential life where things happen very slowly, then all of a sudden. And I can't tell you how many things just the other day, flying back from Madison, Wisconsin, I had faith. All was going wrong. We're going to have to be diverted to LA. I wasn't going to get home to see my son. And I just canceled it all and said, God has me. Whatever happens, this is, and one other thing, just to make a distinction, Emily, too, in this faith that I have, I don't believe God has a plan that he knows I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm going to help over 1 billion people. That's not his plan. His plan is to protect, promote, love, and perfect me with a multitude of experiences so that I can reach my potential or better. And so I don't think it's a predetermined plan. It's just a plan of protection, promotion, love, and perfection to get me to where I want to be or better in this human experience.
You know, it's really surprising to hear you say all of that, because that doesn't feel like typical things I hear from business leaders. They're not really talking about prioritizing your family or prioritizing your health. It's more focused on, grind, and then you'll be successful. I'd like to dig into that a little more. What are maybe some big misconceptions you feel like people have about success and wealth and impact? And what truths do you wish people understood more?
The myth of more If I work harder, I'll have more. If I do this, it's the paradigm of you already have it. I am is the paradigm I want business leaders and owners and entrepreneurs to understand. Wake up every morning and say, I am happy. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am worthy. And figure out what you're doing to interfere with it. Because most of the grinding is creating dis-ease, is creating interference, is creating resistance to what already is there. It's already there. When I was a kid, if someone told me there'd be a billionaire or a multi-billionaire, that scarce perspective, I said, there's no way you could get that much money. It was always there. It's just people have figured out how to stop interfering with it. And so for me, this idea of what am I doing to interfere with where I want to be or better by knowing what I want, who I can help and who can help me, how best to use the 24 hours with non-negotiable and negotiable behavior, how to prioritize the negotiable behavior, reprioritize and post-prioritize according to God laughing at you. And then instead of searching for your why in your lifetime, apply it. Know it's already there. Intelligent, infinite inspiration, infinite energy, infinite intuition. What are you doing to interfere with it? What are you saying to interfere with it? What are you believing and feeling to interfere with it? Or even better. So know your what, your who, your how, and your now, and you apply your why. And I promise you, you will make a lot of money. You will help a lot of people and you will have a lot of fun. In other words, you will be happy. And if you're happy, that'll make me happy. And I'm on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. I do, before we end, I want to offer everyone in your community my book for free. I will sign it, send it to you, pay for shipping, pay for the book. So nothing to worry about. My email's right there, david@dmeltzer.com. Anyone in your community that would like a signed copy of my book, paid for, and the shipping, please email me directly, david@dmeltzer.com.
Thank you for saying that, because I do want to end on just straight up practical advice for our listeners. For someone listening right now who maybe has limited resources or finances, what is something that they can do today to still make a meaningful impact through their work or business?
I have 3 simple words to help everyone, and please start with me if you don't know where to start. Ask for help. The fastest and easiest way to get to where you want to be is find someone that's already there. Ask them for directions. Ask them, would it help you if? Do you know anyone that could help me? Ask for help. Too many people are trying to do it on their own. I've paid over $100 million in dummy tax. You know, everybody complains about taxes. They don't talk about the dummy tax. That will cost you everything you've ever made and everything you will make. So go ahead. If you're wondering, where do I start? How do I get there, Mr. Meltzer? You can start with me. Ask for help from me. Ask me, do you know anyone that can help you? And I'm 1 degree of separation from almost everyone. So that's another reason to email me, david@dmeltzer.com.
Absolutely. Mentorship is just so vital right now. What are some things we can look for in a good mentor and not just, a random person?
Yeah. So, for me, mentorship is about finding a subject, a topic, or an expertise that you're looking for. It's not one mentor. I have a sleep coach. I told you the 5 health coaches. I have a business coach. I have a family coach. So whatever subject, topic, or expertise you're looking for, find someone that's sitting in the situation you want to be in according to that topic, subject, or expert. That's what you do. And luckily today we have access to so many people that fit the mold that it's easier to find than ever.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to add before we close this?
Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Mercy Ships. Globally, 5 billion people lack access to surgical care. In sub-Saharan Africa, there's only 1 surgeon for every 200,000 people. Mercy Ships provides free, life-transforming surgeries for people who have little to no access to medical care. They help the blind see, straighten twisted limbs, remove deadly tumors, treat cleft conditions, and so much more. With state-of-the-art hospital ships, they provide safe surgery to children and adults living with treatable conditions, and it's completely free of charge. They do all this work with an all-volunteer crew of professionals who donate their time and talents. Surgeons, stewards, nurses, engineers, and more make the world a better place. Your donation today provides free, safe surgeries to people in desperate need of help. All gifts are matched, so please donate today at mercyships.org/relevant. Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Tim Tebow's book, Look Again. Have you ever wondered what would change if you truly believed you were infinitely valuable to God? In his New York Times bestselling book, Look Again, Tim Tebow reveals the powerful truth that when we learn to see the image of God in every person, including those we struggle to love, everything changes. Tebow shares incredible stories from his work with people the world often overlooks, and it will challenge you to stand up to the lies, rediscover the worth that everyone has, and impact the world for good. Find Look Again by Tim Tebow, available now wherever books are sold.
Yeah, I always like to just remind people that be more interested than interesting. You know, so many people are trying to stand in front of cars they don't own. They're trying to be, this is what I want people to think I am. They're trying to be so interesting. You don't learn anything by being interesting. Be more interested than interesting. Be kind, and especially kind to your future self by doing good deeds. Please reach out to me if you need help or a book. David@dmeltzer.com. Emily, it's a blessing for the opportunity to share with your community. Please reach out to me. I'd love to do more content with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, David. I really appreciate it.
That was David Meltzer. Make sure to check him out on Instagram at David Meltzer, Meltzer. It is one of my favorite follows. He posts great advice on making a lasting impact every day. Okay, now for part two. Joining us next is Mark Batterson. Mark is the lead pastor of National Community Church in Washington, D.C., and is the New York Times bestselling author of books like The Circle Maker, Win the Day, and In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. In his new book, Gradually, Then Suddenly, he explores a simple but profound idea that most breakthroughs don't happen overnight. They happen slowly, through the ordinary, faithful steps that eventually lead to extraordinary results. In this conversation, Mark shares how that gradually then suddenly pattern has shown up in his own life, from pastoring in DC to writing books that have reached millions, and how real success in ministry doesn't happen in an instant. It happens when we stay persistent to the calling on our lives, trusting that the slow, steady faithfulness will one day lead to something greater than we imagined. It's a great lesson that applies to a lot of fields. But before we get to that conversation, I want to remind you that this special series is brought to you by World Vision. And again, I've had the chance to go and see their work overseas, and it really is unbelievable. Through their programs, every 60 seconds, a family gets water, a hungry child is fed, and a family gets the tools to overcome poverty. In just 5 years, World Vision has impacted the lives of over 200 million vulnerable children by tackling the root causes of poverty. Do yourself a favor and go learn more at worldvision.org/relevant. Get involved. They do amazing work. I've seen it firsthand. All right. And now, here's Emily Brown's conversation with pastor and author Mark Batterson.
About your new book, Gradually, Then Suddenly. And it sort of centers around this idea that transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. And I just would love to start off like maybe unpacking that phrase. Like, how have you seen this play out in your own life?
Yeah. Well, in one level, do we really need a book about the fact that things happen gradually, then suddenly? Actually, I think we do, because most people want that quick fix, get rich quick. We want shortcuts. We want cheat codes. We want twice what our parents had in half the time. So I think this is a much needed course correction in this cultural moment. The title comes from a fun little phrase out of an Ernest Hemingway novel that was written 99 years ago. He said, "How did you go bankrupt?" And the rather infamous reply is 2 ways: gradually and then suddenly. And Emily, that's not just how you go bankrupt. It's how you get out of debt. It's how you start a business, write a book, run a marathon, and 1,000 other things. Overnight success is an oxymoron. It's going to take longer than you like. It's going to be harder than you hope for. You're going to overestimate what you can do in a year or two, but you're going to underestimate what God can do in 10 or 20 or 30. So it's really about long vision times long obedience equals long legacy.
Yeah, I think this is such a perfect message for this moment. Like you said, all of us are looking for a quick fix in some way. No one wants to play the long game. But I am curious, do you think this is something that is a generational thing, or do you think this impacts all generations?
Well, I think it's a it's for anyone and everyone. But, we grew up with the speed of light. I mean, smartphones that can bounce off a satellite and you can have a real-time conversation with someone half a world away. Even with AI, I read 3,000 books before I wrote one, and that took about 13 years. AI can do that in a matter of seconds, which is a little depressing. Although I would say it lacks the imago Dei, and it does hallucinate. But that might be another conversation for another day. Yeah. I think we want things to happen at the speed of light, but in the kingdom of God, they generally happen at the speed of a seed. You have to plant a mustard seed, and eventually you plant enough mustard seeds of faith, and God can move a mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the idea of we have to continually plant those seeds, because I think a lot of people get frustrated when they don't see quick results. What would you say to someone who feels like those small steps of faith that they are taking aren't really making much of a difference?
Well, my lived experience took 13 years to write a book. Took 20 years for us as a church to move from rented facilities into a city block that we now own on Capitol Hill. It took 3 years to become self-supporting. I have plenty of dreams that I've been working on for years and years, and they haven't happened yet. So I think we have to adjust our time frames and our timelines and recognize, for starters, that with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years are like a day. And we generally want things to happen ASAP, as soon as possible. But you have to play the long game. You just have to keep on keeping on, and in a sense, kind of outlast everybody else. I think that really is the story of my life. It took 13 years to write a book, but now there are 25 books, 10 million copies in 25 languages, which I step back and I'm like, how did that happen? And of course, the answer is gradually, then suddenly.
Yeah. That gets to a point in your book. You talk about persistence being the difference between like failure and breakthrough. And I feel like you kind of just hinted at this, but what are some moments in your personal life or in your ministry where that persistence has really paid off?
Well, our first attempt at church planning failed. And we could have called it quits, one and done. And the truth is, the second attempt took a little bit more faith, because if you fail once, it might be an anomaly. If you fail twice, it might be saying something about you. But I look back and I'm actually grateful. And we were all of 22 years old, Emily. So, it was quite an ambitious attempt to plant a church at that age and stage. But I look back on it, and the cure for the fear of failure is not success. It's failure in small enough doses that you build up an immunity to it. And you realize that God's there to pick you up, dust you off, give you a second chance. And so no one bats 1,000. Like it's gonna take a minute. I think of a guy named Eugene Peterson who wrote the Message paraphrase of Scripture. Did you know he wrote 30 books? And I think the Message is like 20 million copies and counting. Eugene, his first book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, was rejected by 17 publishers. And I can't help but think, what if he had given up after 10 rejections or 12 or 16? Well, he would have died with his music still inside him or his books still inside him. And my fear is that that's what happens to most people. We quit circling Jericho on day 6. We quit climbing the stairs to the upper room on day 9. And that's where I would say you cannot focus on the outcomes. Don't focus on lag measures, to use the business term. Focus on lead measures, like focus on the inputs. Fall in love with gradually and let God take care of suddenly.
But I do think you're right. I think a lot of people experience some sort of failure and they take that as a sign to give up. But as we also said, maybe there are times where that is a sign you should give. Like, how do you know when you're supposed to keep being persistent in something?
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that for a second? Because I think you discern the will of God two ways. It's released from and called to. And sometimes God does release us from something. And that's when you need the courage to actually let go and let God and maybe go in a different direction. Sometimes you need to do that. But I would also say that if God hasn't released you, you better keep on keeping on. And what's tricky is trying to discern the will of God. Sometimes you feel released from, but you don't know what you're called to. Or sometimes you feel called to, but you don't feel released from whatever it is you're doing right now. And Emily, that's where there's no shortcut for just a relationship with Jesus and learning to discern the still small voice of the Holy Spirit, because no one else can make that decision for you. That's your decision to make, but that's where you need to live that Spirit-led life. And it's almost like being married to my wife for 33 years. We not only know each other's kind of verbal intonations, we get body language and the whole 9 yards. Like, we have learned how to interpret each other. And I think the same is true in a relationship with God, that I've learned to discern promptings. I've learned to discern when God's closing a door. And it's not always easy, but I think that's where you have to trust that God is ordering your footsteps, that he who began a good work will carry it to completion. And one of the subplots of the book is that God is always writing a bigger story, a better story, a longer story. And that's where you really need to tap in and trust the over story that God's writing, instead of sometimes getting too caught up in the understory of the dramas or melodramas of my life.
And I feel like that ties all back into the gradually then suddenly. What are some, I don't know, maybe like some small everyday choices or acts that we can do to, I don't know, build up that faith, build up that impact that we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, faith is taking the first step before God reveals the second step. If you look at scripture, Abraham put Isaac on the altar. Noah, and by the way, actually, according to rabbinic tradition, planted trees because he knew he would need a lot of planks to build that boat. David had to sling a stone. Benaiah had to chase a lion. Esther, if I perish, I perish. All of them, Peter getting out of the boat in the Sea of Galilee, all of them made a grand gesture, so to speak. And so you can't finish what you don't start. So part of what I'm pushing for in the book are these defining decisions. And personally, like giving up a scholarship at the University of Chicago was a grand gesture for me. My wife and I packing all of our earthly belongings into a U-Haul and moving to DC with no place to live and no guaranteed salary was a grand gesture. Buying a city block for $29.3 million, like we didn't even have a category for that. It was a grand gesture. But I would also go back and say, man, writing that first $50 check to missions was a grand gesture too. You don't have to do big things. I think you have to do little things. Take that first step. And that then begins kind of this domino effect that begins the gradually and ultimately ends with suddenly.
For someone who maybe has been feeling like they've been spending years in the gradually and they're still waiting for the suddenly, what encouragement do you hope they take from this book?
Don't lose heart. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith in the end of the story. We can read the story of Abraham in 25 minutes, but it took 25 years for God to deliver on that promise. We can read about Joseph 13 minutes, but it took 13 years. So I think what we have to do is is really reality check and gut check. And part of it is just not doing things for extrinsic reasons, but really this intrinsic motivation. Like, you know, I'm biased. I grew up in Chicago as a kid watching Michael Jordan. So I think he's the GOAT, greatest of all time. But you know why Jordan was so great? Yeah, he had incredible athletic talent. But I would also argue that love of the game clause that he signed that said, I can play a game of pickup basketball anywhere, anytime. It revealed something about Jordan that no one loved the game more than he did. So what you really have to do is kind of just not worry about, like, let's say you want to write a book. If you're worried about finding a publisher, finding an agent, how many copies it will sell, hitting a New York Times bestseller list, listen, save yourself the trouble. What you need to do is just write. In the words of Tim Ferriss, write 2 crappy pages a day. Like, you just need to get busy doing what it is you're called to do. And I would just say delayed obedience is disobedience. So what you have to do is long obedience in the same direction, kind of one day at a time. And that really is how you reverse engineer anything. You know, the church that we planted and pastor took a long time it was slow growth, like a tree that has slow growth. And I think what the positive of that is that it's greater density, that it can withstand later storms. One of my prayers is, Lord, don't let my gifts take me where my character can't sustain me. When I hear stories of people that kind of experience success and it seems to happen for them much easier or quicker than me, my reaction is, one, that maybe just maybe God knows that they're ready to be able to steward that kind of success. So I don't want to stand in any kind of place of judgment. That's not the game I'm called to play. I also sometimes worry, though, because like I wanted to write a book at 22, Emily, but if I had written a book at 22, I would have had to write a book at 23 to retract what I said at 22. So I think there's a fine line there that, you know, we now have 7 properties worth $100 million, and we own them debt free. But I remember when our total income as a church was $2,000 a month, and it cost $1,600 to rent the public school where we met. That left $400 for our salary and all other expenses. And I look back and I wouldn't trade the hard times because I think it prepared us for the good times. And but each one of us has to run our own race. Oswald Chambers said, let God be as original with others as he was with you. That's pretty good advice when it comes to just looking at other people's stories and other people's success.
That was Mark Batterson. His new book is Gradually Then Suddenly, and it is available for pre-order right now. Look how timely this is. Thanks for joining us for this installment of the Relevant Podcast Impact Conversation Series. If you've enjoyed these conversations, help us spread the word. Post about it. Share it. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an edition. We've got more coming, 4 more specifically. All right, I'm Cameron Strang. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. For the latest at the intersection of faith, life, and culture, make sure to check out relevantmagazine.com. And while there, go over to issue 117 of Relevant. The new digital issue is packed, and you can read it for free. If you want our enhanced magazine, as well as ad-free reading at the site and ad-free versions of our podcasts, sign up for Relevant Plus. Plans start as low as $250 a month, and it's the best way to experience our content. Find out more and sign up today at relevantmagazine.com.